Welcome to Adventures in Consciousness, the interactive show that offers expansive conversation with pioneering new thought teachers and personal real-time guided journeys into the imaginal realm to access your soul's wisdom and discover how to live your greater story. Here is your host, human potentialist, soul mentor, and consciousness guide, Jennifer Evanko.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adventures in Consciousness, a conversation. With me today is soul artist, writer, poet, sacred activist, rebel humanitarian, and founder and steward of 1111 Media, Simran Singh. Simran is a globally recognized speaker and catalyst for love, compassion, and humanity. As an example for a new world experience of aliveness, she advocates for the visionary and mystic embodied in each person, while engaging individuals to embrace their darkest depths so to uncover their brilliance of light. Simran is a #1 rated, archived, syndicated host of Voice America's 1111 Talk Radio, host of 1111 InnerViews TV, and publisher of Nautilus Award-winning 1111 magazine. She is also author of several award-winning books, including Conversations with the Universe, The Journey to Enlightenment, and Your Journey to Love. Simran creates art, books, and online courses to bridge humanity's experiences and expressions, along with being a TEDx speaker. And Simran is a creator of a one-woman show, The Rebel Road, connecting the dots from what was to what is. Welcome, Simran.
It's so nice to be with you, Jennifer. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited about today. I've been spending a lot of time listening to your TEDx and reading, and your magazine, 1111 magazine, is a free magazine, I wanted to mention as well. The first thing that I'd like to start with is I was struck by your statement and your name of your website, I Am Simran. I'd love to explore that journey with you a little bit of how you came to that, such a beautiful knowing.
Simran is actually my given name from birth. But with the work that I do, I speak to people about how life speaks to us, that everything in our lives, whether it's the people, the places, the things, the experiences that we encounter, they really are all reflections of us, speaking back to us about us. And we ultimately are here to discover that the divine is moving through us as us in the different experiences that we're having. Simran is a Sanskrit word, and the ancient meaning is actually to be in such a meditative state that you are one with the divine. And so I chose the website name of I Am Simran to help people claim that for themselves. So it's not so much about me, although it's my name. It's more of seeing the word, having the remembrance, even if people are not familiar with the word or the meaning. There's certain words in the world that have such resonance, and those are some in prayers, some in other things. And Simran is one of those words that just by the mere sound of it, the seeing of it, it imprints with that remembrance and that knowing the divine is walking through me. And I am and that embodiment on this planet to experience and express myself, because we are all here as experiencing itself.
Wow, that is beautiful. I hadn't expected that answer. To me, first languages like Sanskrit, when they were spoken for as a communication with nature and God and the world, they have a resonance that is a lot different than our language that we have now, which is an intellectual, conceptual. So I didn't realize that Simran, I didn't take that all the way back to the Sanskrit. Beautiful.
Well, when I did my one-woman show, that was a show that was designed to be organic and spontaneous and unplanned completely. And I would allow myself to get on stage and just let whatever would stream through come. And through the course of those shows, there were certain statements that really felt like a deep understanding of the name Simran. And those were from the lips of the divine to the ears of the divine, from the ears of the divine, from the lips of the divine to the ears of the divine. So that there was this real integrated understanding that we think that we are these identities and people and egos and our stories and our conflicts and our generations and our histories. But in fact, we are the divine speaking and hearing, and every word we speak, that the divine within us also hears. And so that will end up manifesting, that we will create in the world, because the word has that much power when it is spoken from the divine self, whether that divine self is used in an unconscious way or conscious way.
And the power that you have when it is conscious, when you become aware of that co-creative nature that we have.
Yes. Yes, most definitely.
So this is a, and we'll get more into the flow that you're in right now. This is a beautiful place to be in, but I know that you weren't always in this place of recognizing that divinity and that ability to co-create with life. Can you tell us a little bit of when it happened, when you became aware of this, of who Simran is?
I think that where I was prior to my own spiritual journey, as well as where I am now, is in the exploration for the embodiment of humanity. I believe that the bridge between where we are and where we want to go actually rests deeply within us embodying who we are as humanity. And that's not this big overarching humanity that we look at outside of us, but really anchoring into, what is it that can we feel? Can we feel the full gamut of everything that is within us and unearth everything that has been repressed? And so early on, being an Indian in an American culture, trying to fit into both societies, going through an arranged marriage, trying to figure out how to please my parents, becoming a workaholic, realizing the arranged marriage is not where I want to be, that put me through enough struggle and pain and questions to want to know what this longing inside of me was, that knew something else existed, knew that there was a love beyond all kinds of love that I had seen. And somehow I also knew that it was inside of me. It wasn't external, but yet I was to use the world as this guide for me, as this mirror to the nth degree to discover me. Somehow I always knew that everything outside of me mirrored me. And so that became the exploration. And through that, the robotic, unfeeling, numbed out Simran that desperately wanted to feel was taken through experiences that ultimately got me to the place where everything about me was able to crack apart. The hardening around my heart was able to crack open to where I got to feel the depths of what most people call the darkness or the pain. But it is what I've learned, it's through that we discover our light, the true meaning of joy, happiness, all of those lighter things that we really want, that we have to go to those places. So it's humanity that I've been in search for. I haven't been looking to ascend anywhere. I have always felt that we need to root ourselves more deeply in the earthen bodies that we live in before we ascend to anywhere else. And so that has been my journey. And my partner, my co-creator in that, has always been the divine presence, which I have known exists within me and outside of me.
So you talk about, there's so many things that you were just saying, the darkness, going through that depth, how important that is in our to see the brilliance, to see the light. Sometimes that's a hard thing, especially when you're working with people or talking to people and you see them going into something that's really hard. And part of you is like, wow, this is great. This is a beautiful thing to embrace and experience. How do you navigate that? How do you?
I think that we push against fear, we push against grief, we push against jealousy or rage or any of those denser emotions because society tells us we're not supposed to feel those things. And I grew up in a household where I was told you're not supposed to cry. And so those were all things that had really been kept away from me. And yet I didn't feel whole and I didn't know why. And life kept bringing really difficult experiences in my direction, like it does for everyone. That's part of the human condition and the human experience. But as I moved through, I was able to hit an experience that was so utterly crushing that the only place to go was the darkness. And it was in that moment that I wondered if I could commit to the darkness with the same degree of devotion that I have committed to the light all these years, there's something in there, because I wouldn't have created this experience if the universe didn't want me to learn something, didn't have a special nugget inside of there that fulfilled the soul longing that my life truly is led by. And it was there that I discovered something really fascinating, because I was always this kind of individual that, and I'm sure many in your audience are those types, they want to serve the world, they want to do good, they want to share their light and shine that light. And oftentimes we go through that healing journey. We are the wounded healer, so we learn the protocols, the practices, the ways of coaching and healing and mentoring, and then we decide, okay, we're going to go out and do that in the world because now we've done this for ourselves. When I think we've kind of missed the point. We take what we've learned and all of a sudden get distracted to go share it rather than deepen further into the place that we came in. And when I went into the darkness, what I discovered is that what I had done all these years had been really beautiful, but it was artificial lighting. It was the ego's version of light. It was the identity's desire to be seen or to do good or to serve and to share or to celebrate what I had learned up until that point. But by going through the darkness, that was where I discovered only true light will be seen in the darkness. That's when we discover where our real light is. There is a wormhole through grief. There's a wormhole through our rage. And it doesn't come from the type of activism that is the protest and the rioting or the screaming outside. It comes with the willingness to sit inside ourselves, feel the boiling volcano inside of rage, or to feel the rivers of jealousy, apathy, or indifference that are within our own bloodstreams, or to cry the endless tears of grief that seem like they'll never end because you're not just crying for yourself. You realize it relates to your mother and your grandmother and all those that came before you until it touches the collective itself. And that's the journey that I went on. And in that journey, it was a challenge. It was difficult. It was excruciating at times. And I finally found my command.
Wow. You know, you hear about some of the beautiful mystics like Hildegard von Bingen or some of these other mystics we read about that have like migraines or something, that they go into that pain and that suffering, and that's where they find their way through to that renaissance, to that something new coming, birthing through them.
Yes, yes. I think we have to find the way to embrace those places, because even those are the stories that the ego has created, you know, about, and they keep us separate. They enforce the stories of the ego of how we're not wanted or not loved or not good enough, or all these things that we come up with as children. And the pain helps us stay encased in those stories, and in that pain, we touch it just enough to know, oh, it's painful, I don't want to go there. And then we allow a shiny bauble or another path or some other type of constriction to distract us, rather than saying, what would happen if I just sat and felt it? What would happen if I let myself understand this color of myself? Because that's basically what emotions are. They're various colors of who we are and how we express.
Beautiful. So I've, from my own experience, hitting a very deep, dark part of my life, I think when you move through and you allow it to happen, at the end, you're released and you have free choice. Okay, well, now what do I want to believe, or what do I want to create? But you had to go through that first.
You do, because there's, you know, I think in my own personal journey, and I think in many individuals when they go through any type of, whether it's therapy or coaching or a mentoring of a program around personal growth, you're taken back to the incidents that you seem not able to get past. You're taken back to those places that you need to heal. And we get to those things and we heal them to a certain extent, but there are these cracks and crevices in there that we haven't quite gotten to. And I think that's why we create the boulders in our life. I talk about how we create pebbles, rocks, and boulders along the way to kind of stumble us in order to look back and figure out remnants of pieces that we left behind. And when those boulders hit, there comes a point after you have done enough personal growth where you finally are willing to stop and say, okay, if I have created this big hole, then there's no one else to look at in this situation except myself. And there must be something that I have missed. And to give oneself the grace of saying, how did I really create this? And am I willing to go back through myself and find those cracks and crevices and fill them with the golden essence of who I am just by the mere awareness and presence to them? Then all of a sudden, we become like those beautiful vases in Japan and China where they put the 24 karat gold in there, and we take something that was broken and make something truly beautiful out of it. But we have to be willing to break first. And I think that what we think of as broken is often just fractured. And that hurts a lot more than letting yourself be broken first and then realizing the beauty that's in what's breaking apart.
Break open and break through. Yes.
Yes.
So at some point then, when you were at your depth, you started receiving the messages or hearing and realizing that it wasn't just you had support to come out of this place. You had the universe there to help you, or guidance, divine guidance. How did you trust? How did you believe or know that that was happening?
As I began my spiritual journey, I kept hearing of all these people that say, oh, I heard this, or, I got this message, or my guide said this to me. And I was never a person like that. Like, I didn't have my guides talking to me. And so it was like, okay, I'm not having all these conversations that everyone else is having, but I must have my own way. And, a lot of people don't have those types of things happen to them, and they make up that there's something wrong with them, or that they didn't get a certain piece that they were meant to get, a certain chip embedded in them to let them talk to the divine directly, or have, this team or set of guides that were going to kind of point the way or be able to predict things for them. And I thought everyone has to have that kind of language or that communication in their life. What if it's so ordinary that we're missing it? What if it's right under our noses all of the time? And we're actually being guided every step of the way in every single thing that we encounter. And so that was my way of working through things. And I think much of that came also from the gift of shame, because shame had been the thing that I carried most. I didn't know it at the time that was the thing that I did, that I always placed everything as if my fault, or I must have done this, or this is about what I did, rather than realizing that in relationships and different things, there are other people involved and it's not always me, but I always put it on myself. And in a way, that was a gift, because I was used to putting things on me, that it was easy enough to say, well, what if this is a reality where I'm the only one in the room and everything else, and if I'm the divine, just like everyone else, and everything else is the divine, then really I'm speaking to myself. The divine is speaking to itself. And so that tree, that bird, that book, that person, that experience, it's all me speaking back to me about me. So can I look at the person in front of me and see if they're upset and find that in myself? Can I look at the person on stage who I admire, that I think is this incredible being, and instead of sitting there in awe and making them an idol, can I find that inside myself? Can I, walk through a marshy area and stop for a moment and find that in myself? And so as I kept doing that, I started to uncover the depths of me, because I was willing to look at the subtlety of life inside of me. And it just brought me to the place of realizing that we look outside so much for everything, that we have not realized that the entire universe actually exists within ourselves, that everything outside of us is purely projection, but there to support us in our own personal growth.
And that connection, like you said, too, of outside and inside being that one.
Yes.
Beautiful. And, I'm noticing, again, from your reading you and listening to you now, this curiosity. You're asking questions, too. I mean, that's important.
That's the first thing that I started doing. So in my first book, Conversations with the Universe, I write about 5 questions that I would ask myself. And the first one was, where is that in me? And then I would follow that with, what is that here to teach me about me? And then what is that to bring up from within me in terms of gifts, skills, and talents? And so when I used that framework and went through those 5 questions each time, I got to know myself better, but I also got to know my outward expression better as well. And utilizing the signs, you mentioned trust. That's really where I began to trust, because what I discovered was I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust the people around me. I didn't trust life. And truthfully, I didn't even trust God at the time. So as I started to utilize the outside as this barometer and gauge to help me know where life was going, and I started to realize that as I changed, it also changed. It gave me a sense of trust in life. And that trust in life was an understanding this is all the divine. So I now can trust the divine is going to bring me what I need. And because I'm willing to listen and willing to ask the questions and willing to be in conversation with the universe, I can now trust myself as well. So in a lot of my own books and my work, it is all experiential. I don't really believe that I channel. I believe that I have experiences, and then my heart wants to share what those experiences are. And I do so because I truly believe that any individual, no matter what their circumstances, where they come from, what they've been through, they can reach enlightenment just by way of their own life. They just have to commit to their life and live it fully. And that means feeling everything.
And when I read your books or your writings, there's such an authenticity that comes through that it's not just a straight read. You actually, as a reader, I'm sitting there resonating with the words. I want to sit with a paragraph and just let it flow inside of me. So it's more than just a intellectual experience.
I find that when I write, that's my final step of integration. Whenever I go through any experiences, I go through them, as we all do. And oftentimes when we're going through them, we haven't felt every single nuance or really become aware of every single thing to really glean it into wisdom. I often then sit with it and I go back and witness it. I allow myself to really go back through it to understand as the sacred witness. But the integration comes with writing. And that's how I know that I have fully embodied what I'm talking about, because I can put it into words. And by putting it into words, then hopefully other people can find themselves in it. I'm not a fluff writer. My books tend to go pretty dense into the topics. And so I usually tell individuals when they get one of my books, it's not about finishing the book. It might be a line that you sit with for several days, or it might be a paragraph that you sit with for a couple of weeks, or you may take a chapter and just go over it and over it and over it for a month, because there's going to be a lot in there. And it's about you finding yourself in those places. It really isn't about my story. In the moments that I share my story, I'm simply the example. No gurus, no teachers, just an example.
See, and that's, we spoke about that before, but that's what I love and what I'm hearing. It's not about somebody that's gone through and is already done and then teaches what they've learned. That's the old way. Now it is about us all going through something together and sharing. And as you are completing the book and as I am reading it, we're going through it together.
Yes. And a whole new synergy happens when that happens. There's a meeting of our consciousness in some way. Even if I didn't know you were reading a certain piece, there's a way that we find a unified place in that.
And I love how you touch on time in one of your books too. You're talking about, instead of just the linear time, the sideways time. And
time has been an interesting piece for me to wrap my head around, because I always have so much deja vu, and yet I find myself circling through old stories all the time, because the mind does that. And yet I've learned to really live my life being as present as possible, because that truly is where time stretches. And I feel like really all things happen at the same time, that we have our bubbles of experience that are all existing simultaneously, whether it was from childhood or whether it's the future, that they really are all happening right now. And the more present we can stay, the more vertically aligned we can become, rather than the horizontal structure of time, which I think, again, that's that distraction place that sends us off.
And I like to look at time as a territory. It's all there right now. And we are actually expanding our awareness to be in all of time, just as in all the world around us.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Beautiful. I'm really excited to continue this conversation. We're going to take a quick break and then come back, and I'd like to go more into the conversations with the universe and that experience.
Fantastic.
Stay with us. You are listening to Adventures in Consciousness, the conversation, and we'll be right back.
Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
There is no greater mystery in life than you. So why not take a fully experiential plunge into the depths of your being to uncover and retrieve all the secrets and wisdom your soul is crying out for you to know? If you enjoy Adventures in Consciousness, the conversation, you'll love Adventures in Consciousness, the course. Join Jennifer in this unique 13-week series of journeys specifically designed to unlock the mysteries of yourself. Each week, you'll journey progressively deeper into the meta realm, where, freed from the limitations of your mind, you'll get to play and explore the inner and outer reaches of your awareness. The next series of Adventures in Consciousness, the course, is starting soon. Find out more and stake your place at JenniferEvanko.com.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly.
Lights out. Good night.
And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to Adventures in Consciousness, the conversation, and my guest is Simran Singh. We're going to continue talking now about her book, one of her books, The Conversations with the Universe. And actually, more than the book, we're going to talk about the experiences. So, Simran, part of the conversation, it's not just getting a message. We hear about 1111 and your great work with 1111. But it's not just about the message. It's about the conversation. You seem to build on just this whole way of conversing with the universe. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I think we get hooked on looking for signs and symbols, or we get delighted by the synchronicities that show up. And I know I've often heard people, and even early on myself, something would show up that would delight me as a sign or a symbol, as a synchronicity. And I would go, oh my goodness, this means this. This is so awesome. This is wonderful. And then a couple of minutes would go by and it would be like, could you send me one more sign just to make sure that's really what you mean? And then we get another sign that confirms what we want. And then it's, okay, just one more sign, just one more to make sure I'm absolutely clear. And in a way, that's an early beginning of the conversation, because it is this banter that we have back and forth with the universe. Conversation requires two. And so often, and we always hear, praying is talking to God, and meditation is listening to God. But this is another version of that. This is being willing to speak with the universe ask for what you want and say where you are and allow the feeling, whatever that is, good, bad, or ugly, allow the feelings to come forth and converse, and then ask for the guidance, and it will show up. And when that guidance comes, whether it's a number, whether it's a certain bird, whether it's a conversation that comes across your path, but the answer will come. And in that moment, that is really a prompt to, number one, get going on whatever it is that you're asking about, to take some sort of inspired action, because that in itself furthers the conversation. The universe sees that we take action on the sign, and that might be making a move or changing a job, or having a conversation with someone that we've been too scared to have the conversation with. When we take that action, all of a sudden you'll find the universe will give you another prompt in some way, shape, or form. And what I discovered is these synchronicities don't happen once in a while. They're not these magical things that are miracles that show up, and even miracles show up all the time, but they really do take place every single day, and most often in the most mundane, ordinary ways, such as things going on with your car, a flat tire, a pipe bursting, a gift showing up, in the mail, a feather on your path. They can show up in all kinds of ways. We judge them as good or bad, these things that happen, but they're actually the signs, symbols, and synchronicities of the conversation. When you put these things together, they form a paragraph. And the universe is speaking to us all the time, every minute of the day, every day of the week, throughout our entire lives.
So in the studies, I do a lot with mystery schools and esoteric studies, but we learn that everything is synchronic. Everything is a synchronicity. Everything.
Yes, everything. Isn't that magical? That's the beauty of life. And somehow we are not taught that, from the time we're children. I've discovered that, human beings, we're naturally negative, honestly. That's why we have to state positive affirmations. That's why we go on these journeys that we're going on. And when we can accept that that's who we are based on the conditioning of the world and how we have been brought in, then we can shift this place of wonder and excitement and delight to see things from a different perspective, because it's just perspective in the end, right? And so whether or not you believe in signs and symbols and synchronicities, whether or not that's part of your culture or your faith or anything like that, the one truth is it's simply something that continues to guide you. And to me, anything that can cause us delight and wonder in this world, that's where the light is. That's where we can be led.
Wow. So it struck me as you were talking before about, this asking the question, show me another sign, show me. It's almost like a child when they first learn a language. At the first words, they're so excited about the word, not what the word can really, do or hear what the response, that they, keep repeating that. And we're kind of like that in our learning here.
Yes, I think so, most definitely. And the catch is, and it's just like any other protocol or healing method that we learn, the catch is to not fall into it where we use it as a crutch, because ultimately it's here to teach us that we are these things, that we are creating a reality, that we are even creating the signs that appear on our path to lead us. It is that. And so once you can really take ownership and responsibility of your life to every degree, then all of a sudden you step in a way of creative capacity and self-empowerment that is far greater than where you have been before.
Well, I think a key here also is that beginner's mind, that once we step in that expertise, that, okay, I've got it. I know this symbol means this, and this is what my life is, the path I'm going. Once you're there, it's you're stuck again.
Yes, because, as you go through learning the signs and symbols, the first go-to is probably going to be to Mr. Google, because we're going to know that there's all kinds of information on the internet. So you want to know what this bird means, or you want to know what this number means, and that's okay. But at a certain point, we each have our own dialect with the universe. And so at a certain point, pull back from looking up things and instead, sit back and feel, what does this mean to me? Because a red bird passing on your path versus passing on mine, where we are in our lives, it can mean one thing for you and another thing for me, and a third thing on Google. So it's about tapping into your own intuition, starting to trust your own guidance, and understanding that as you align this outer world with the inner world, then the true power and creative capacity of you as a divine being comes into play.
And you said that beautifully, aligning your own inner path with the outer, because you might have the bird or the intuition or something come through, and then you go outside of yourself and say, okay, what does that mean?
Yes.
Yeah. And I liked how you said might seem really ordinary. This things that are happening, this conversation might come in ordinary ways, but my ordinary is very different than another person's. And so finding what is ordinary to me might be something very special.
Exactly. And I got to the point, I think I probably was a little bit Pollyanna for a lot of it, but I really did look for the good in everything that happened. So, whether it was a basement flooding, or whether it was, a car accident, or whether it was something that happened health-wise, or a divorce, or any type of thing that took place, I looked at the good in that. What was this conversation happening? If someone is leaving my life, then rather than stick to the attachment and the hurt and the pain of that, perhaps we have moved into a place where we're different vibrations, not good or bad, right or wrong, but we're just meant to now move into different spheres of life, different people and different experiences. And so as we let go of our attachments to things, you will see the landscape of life change. And as you grow, it is a beautiful barometer to follow, to watch new friendships come in as other friendships go out, or to watch new surroundings come in as other surroundings fade away, or to watch gifts show up in your life in abundance, whereas before maybe you had lack. It's all speaking to you about where you are in your consciousness and the depths of your heart.
Yeah, it's funny. Listening to you, I just kind of went way over there and got lost. It happens. I'd like to go into, in your book, you bring up senses. You go through the different senses. And to me, this is an important part of human potential, is we tend to lose our senses. We kind of become dominant in one or two senses or three and don't pay attention to the other. But this is our way of communing or conversing with the world around us. And you do an excellent job of opening that up with new ideas, new ways to look at it.
Oh, thank you. I feel that way about the senses, about the seasons. There's so much that we can get from that. And again, I think as human beings, because of conditioning, we get into this habit of living at a very surface level. But we've been given these senses to embody being human. And yet these senses go much deeper. There was a time as early humans, our sense of smell could tell us whether an individual was malignant or whether they were benevolent. And we've lost that kind of sense of really getting, what we're around, a situation, a person, or any type of thing. And so as we really engage in the senses, whether it's sight or smell or sound, we tap into a deeper essence of who we are. But we first have to know that part of ourselves enough, and again, start to trust it as another aspect of our intuition. And the same thing with the seasons. They take us on a journey as to how we are to be in the world. We've gotten away from our cycles and rhythms that are in touch with Mother Earth, and they're all right there for us. If we just simply follow the cycles and rhythms of the moon, or the cycles and rhythms of the seasons, that will show us that there has to be a time of rest. There has to be a time when things harvest. There has to be a time when things are planted. But we've become not only a very heady society, but one that really believes that productivity is the only way, that we're losing all of these other spaces. But it is okay to stop. It's okay to take the break. And I think that when we learn that, then all of a sudden we will have less of the necessity to feel the darker feelings, because we won't be creating those situations as much.
Well, and I think at some point, you were saying before, I know what I was going to say. You were saying before how you thought maybe a little Pollyanna, but you were looking at what was good out of something that was happening bad. I think every situation has a good to it that can help us create the next good thing. What's coming next? If we sit there and look for what's bad in it, we're going to create the next bad thing and keep going down that way.
Yes, and truly everything, there can only be good. Like every single thing that happens on the planet really is good. The universe does not judge, does not categorize things as good or bad. Only we as humans do. We stay at the bird's eye view, or the ground level view of things, rather than taking the heavenly view, the overarching one, to understand that there's always a constant balancing happening, a balancing of energies, and that every situation we look at, whether it's politically, whether it is someone's health, whether it is social type of situation in the world, all of these things are going through a process of balancing, and they're connected to something else. And so part of our job as human beings, where we can really be the greatest activists, is rather than being so quick to react and go outside and do something externally, although there's a place for that, it is to go inside and really feel and allow the balancing inside to take place. And when we do that, we'll create it on the outside. And in creating it on the outside, we then are able to allow our genius to bubble up. And when that genius bubbles up, there will be people who their passion and their desire and their fire is to do something about that so-called problem. But it won't be just a bunch of people jumping on a bandwagon because that happens to be the topic of the day. It will be because those that are designed to focus on that will, and others that are designed to create in a different way will do that. And through that way, we start to head towards that more utopian type of society.
Beautiful. Because there's a beautiful complexity if you can step back and see the whole balance, as you said. But we're often caught up in this chaos. What we consider chaos is because we can't see the complexity yet that's there.
Exactly. And everything we look at, despite what's in front of us, we're coming at it from our own lens of our childhood wounds. It doesn't matter what's in front of us. And so if we can really get in touch with that and understand, I'm being triggered because of some event, let me go find that and heal that first. And then if I still feel like that from a place of inspired action, then I'm going to actually do some good. Otherwise, our energy towards things oftentimes is amplifying the very thing that we want to change. And that's not helping the situation.
Yeah. And that's another reason to embrace coming together in groups and collectives, because then we can start seeing those triggers through other people's eyes. Like, I'm being triggered by you. What does this mean? Asking those questions.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. There's so much that we could keep going on. And this is just one of her books. We've got two others, and she's got some more coming. Actually, can you tell us a little bit about your 1111 and what you do there? I think that's amazing.
Yes, absolutely. 1111 magazine came through me at a time during which I was going through really difficult life changes. And there was an extreme amount of pain. I couldn't understand why love felt so unloving. And in that period of time, I just cried out for the universe to give me some reason to understand what was happening. I didn't want to be on this planet because that was enough. And I was given some images of a magazine, and I heard the words, "Do this now, and others will heal." So this was really a place I started for the opportunity to create beauty again in my life, because there was very little beauty, but also to share my heart. And in that way, it became this life enhancement magazine. I create it and give it away free. It's digitally there on my website all the time, just so that anyone who's looking for inspiration or to see themselves in some of the other individuals that are featured, they have the opportunity to discover more of who they are.
You know, as you were speaking, I wonder if sometimes this pain or crisis, when we go through that, it forces us to focus on something, and then that allows us to ask the questions that then help us manifest and come out of it. And it's just learning to focus. Maybe we can do that through pleasure too, or through other ways, not just pain.
Well, pain brings us present. It brings us to a moment. It brings us back to our bodies. It brings us to, what's really going on there, or this thought of introspection. It brings us to conversation with the divine, whether it's prayer or meditation or pleading or whatever that is. We come to this place where we're back here again. And if we would learn to be in that place of presence, even through our most joyful moments, we wouldn't have to create these degrees of pain. But I believe that's part of the human condition that hopefully we are growing out of.
Right. I've been told pain is just another experience. So you are also an artist. I love some of the art I've seen on your website, and that I consider touching that creativity is like touching your soul when you can be inspired and let it flow out. Have you always been an artist? Have you always?
No, actually, I had a situation take place about 7 years ago where I had suffered a loss that was, if you could have me experience a loss of this type, that was the biggest thing that could have ever happened to me, that would hurt the worst. And I was going through intense grief. It was the moment that I committed to the darkness and said, I'm going to stay in this grief and stay on the ground and stay in this place until the universe gives me guidance to step out of it. And it was a really profound journey because this commitment was really a commitment to myself and to self-love and to an exploration of the other side of life that I didn't really know because it was so hidden within me. And I also knew people were trying so much to stay away from darkness that it created a bit of curiosity. But through that initial period of intense grief, I believe that my higher self or wiser self knew enough to give me a break because I wasn't giving me a break. That I again got another message to paint 40 paintings in 40 days. And I'd never painted before. And so I did that, and it was meditative enough that it would give me periods where the crying and the grief would pause. I would paint, and they would be messages in their own right. They would be symbolism that I needed to see. That was not just about me, but also collective. And then I'd go back to my place of presence with whatever I was feeling. And so many of the pieces that came forward were from that. And there's a progression of a story there. It's the creation myth and also the human experience through our conditioning just throughout many of those pieces. So it was both enlightening in looking back at them, but also quite a beautiful way to integrate some of what was happening during a time of deep healing.
So this is beautiful that your writing, your books and your poetry is an integration process, and then it's layered with that energy then, so the reader responds to that. And now your artwork is the same way. There's a frequency or resonance to the art that we share.
Yes. I believe that we all have all the gifts and skills and talents within us. They're latent, and we just have to uncover them. When I did my one-woman show, I did that as an act of self-love. I wanted to discover who I was beyond who I knew myself to be. I had been this introverted, very shy, kind of kept at home woman in this arranged marriage, and I just went out to work when I had to work. But otherwise, I didn't have friends. I didn't socialize. There was just this really limited experience of life. And when I got my divorce, I thought, who else am I? If I am truly the divine, just like everyone else, then I have everything inside of me. Am I willing to trust and see what can unfold from me that I don't even know that I have? And so I chose to create an 11-month, 66-city show tour that was organic, that I didn't know who was going to come or where it was going to be. And I was just going to get up on stage. And I knew that I'd never been funny in my life. I didn't have a funny mouth. And I knew I couldn't sing, but yet I wanted to do all these things. And it was this really amazing journey of light and love and experience, because as I went through, there were things that I would say and people would laugh, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am funny. There is funniness in here, or songs started coming through, and I may not have been the best singer the first show or the second show or the third show, but by the 66th show, I actually carried a really good tune. And so I allowed it to be this expression for people to also let themselves off the hook. Because we are taught that you have to be perfect. You have to get the nth degree of something before you can go out and do something. You have to have it so perfected. And yet we're here as experience. So it only made sense to me. I'm not supposed to be perfect the first time. I'm supposed to learn along the way and allow that perfection to unfold towards the end. And so it was a beautiful display of that for myself and for others. And to live our lives in that way and understand that we can have whatever we want, but ultimately it's about us creating the experience for our heart and soul that is the most richest.
And the journey continues, right?
Yeah. You are not on a journey, you are the journey.
There we go. Perfect. So Simran, we're going to go, I'd love to hear your reading. This is as you know, my listeners, we do an experience with each show. And this time I'd like to have Simran do one of her readings, and we'll do it with meditation. We are having just a little bit of technical problem with your microphone. So if you want to make sure you're coming close, Simran, for that reading.
Absolutely, I will do that.
Beautiful. So we'll go ahead and hand it over to you for a moment.
I'd like to invite you to close your eyes and take a deep breath, imagining a light within your heart, and another deep breath. Now move to your eyes with a spark of light behind each one, inhaling and exhaling. And now rise to your third eye, experiencing a light at the third eye point, once again inhaling and exhaling. And notice the line of light that drops down from the third eye down into the heart, down to the torso, and through both legs. That light will travel down into Mother Earth, anchoring you there as you anchor into the power of patience. Until you claim the truth of your precious and sacred nature, you cannot treasure the jewel that you are, nor will you treasure the jewels that surround you. Go beyond the illusions. Can you fall in love? Will you let yourself be loved, truly loved? That which is your higher self wants to love you. You have been in love with the lower self, its drama and illusion. This love has been the addiction, the drug, and the storyline that you have witnessed while you wandered in the wilderness. The only necessity is space. In the open space, something can enter, be it healing, the answer, the awareness, the idea, the knowing of what comes next. Space is not physical. It is the land of nowhere. No time, no thing, no one, no ledge, no mind, knowings. It is your nobility. Enter the space and leave all else behind, because they don't have meaning until the space is meaningful. Don't wait until your eyes close to focus upon your dreams. Most of life is made in your daydreams. The dark night is the spell you cast unknowingly. These moments beckon you to draw the light of truth from within. This karma is a blessing to take you deeper inside your own sacredness. What are you drawing into your life? In order to fan this beautiful flame, release yourself into the sea of consciousness, embracing every wave, immersing into remembering that you need only ride the current. There is one heart among us, one trail, one path, one door, one key, one step into love, peace, and harmony. To get there, you must go through your own self. It doesn't matter how many paths you take or all the processes you undergo. You can play with every technique and protocol, but play with the understanding that there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. You need only be present to your absolute wholeness. With this intentionality, play all the day long and deep into the night as the divine child that you are. As you do, cultivate the power of patience and sink into the knowing that you may do more nothing. Stay in love, because love surrounds you. You are of love, because love is all there is in every molecule of your being. You are always with love. Love embraces you in every moment. You are simply here to be as love, in each expression and experience. Allow love to be the current, the present moment, and the journey that you experience. With a deep breath, stay in this remembrance. Gently open your eyes, wiggle your fingers and toes, rotate your wrists, shake out your body, and enter the space. I am Simran. In love, of love, with love and as love. Be well.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Simran. That was a reading from her last novelist, the last magazine, 1111.
Yes.
The editors. Sorry, I'm a little bit still there. Beautiful. Thank you. I'd like to end here with some words about where they can find out more about you, your website, and also this new books that you have coming out. What's on the horizon?
Absolutely. You can reach me at 1111mag.com. That's 1111mag.com. That's where all of the 1111 magazine radio and pieces are. I am also at iamsimran.com, iamsimran.com, and that's where more of my personal work, my artwork, and my books are.
Beautiful.
I have 3 books that are current, and those are Conversations with the Universe, Your Journey to Enlightenment, and Your Journey to Love. And this December, the first of another trilogy releases, and it is called Living, the 7 Human Lessons of Experience. And that goes into much more of what I learned.
Beautiful. Thank you, Simran. And we will see you again, everybody, in another couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.